green. Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go! You got your Mac and Mac guys, John McMullen and Jody McDonald, here to hang with you on a football Friday. Yes, it is a football Friday. We'll acknowledge the baseball team in just a second. But first things first, yes, get ready for another Eagles games, an all-green matchup that I was very much looking forward to in July and August. And now that we've arrived here in October, yeah, I'm not really looking forward to it all that much because...
this was going to be a big one, man. I circled this one. I was excited about this one. Now it's like, it's just another bump in the road. I'm sorry, Jody.
That's I've only been taking it for 50 years. So what's another Sunday against the Eagles? Which, oh, by the way, the New York Jets have never beaten the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah.
In a tradition like no other. The Eagles-Jets final preseason game of the year, which the Eagles used to lose every once in a while. The Jets would find a way to win
them in preseason,
Yeah. Unfortunately, the regular season games are the one that count, and the Eagles have never, let me repeat that, never lost the Jets. 13-0? Is it 13 or 15?
I believe it's 13.
13.
I'll double check.
Be 14 by Sunday. So, yeah, we will talk plenty. And if the Jets somehow find a way to jump up and win this game, my guess will be that it'll be more the Eagles shooting themselves in the foot than the Jets putting forth some kind of phenomenal performance. Because I've talked about the Jet defense all year long. And they've had a couple of injuries, and they got injuries going into this week with
big one popped up yesterday, by the way. Big one. Big injury.
Which one are you referring to?
Jalen Carter.
For the Eagles.
Yes.
I'm talking about the Jets injuries.
Yeah.
They're down a couple of their cornerbacks. Looks like the top two guys, DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner, are both going to play, but I don't know that either one of them is 100%. Reed just got out of the concussion protocol and was limited to practice yesterday, but their backup guys are both hurt. The Jets are not at 100% coming into this game on the defensive side, which is their lone strength. All right, so yeah, let's get to that Eagle injury. Did Jalen Carter get hurt stepping out of the shower or something? Because he practiced fully the day before and nowhere to be found yesterday. What the hell happened, Johnny Mac?
Hopefully we'll get some information this morning from Nick Sirianni as far as, he's probably not going to give us a timetable. But as far as what happened, because you're right, everything's copacetic on Wednesday, and all of a sudden Thursday pops up and he's not there and he's injured. And he's not practicing at all. And he's in red ink on the special teams depth chart, which means you're injured. Very surprising. And obviously not in a positive way. People get hurt in practice. I mean, Jordan Mailata got injured last year in practice and had to miss a couple games. So it does happen, but obviously it's the way he's been playing. That's a big one because he's been dominant. And this is probably the week where you can persevere, but you don't want to. And Thursday, not being able to practice is not a good sign for a Sunday game. I will say that.
You mentioned my lot. Didn't he get hurt in a game last year? Didn't he get hurt
Just
on
his knee
a
in
return
practice. Yeah.
on a return pick six? Didn't he?
Yeah, 2 years ago. You're right.
Oh, that was
Last year was the shoulder. 2 years ago, he injured his knee in practice. Last year was the shoulder on the pick six against Jacksonville.
right.
Correct. Yeah.
But your point of you can get hurt in practice is legit, not often. And you know what it was? If he did get hurt in practice, and this is pure speculation by McDonald and McMullen here. We don't know when he got hurt, how he got hurt, how hurt he is, or anything else. But if he did get hurt in practice, it's the intensity of that Eagle practice, John. The coach went bragging on it last week that they're so intense in practice. I guess Jalen got a little too intense in practice and ended up hurting himself.
It's you can get, and that's the thing about football. I mean, the worst injury maybe I've ever seen in practice was Teddy Bridgewater's. Ever heard of? That was in practice. It happens. It doesn't happen a lot, but it definitely happens. And the way he's been playing it's unfortunate because he's been. I don't think it's an overstatement to say he's been one of the best defensive players in football to this point, the entire NFL. And I think he's been the best Eagles defensive player. And the Eagles have a lot of good players, and I think he's been the best, which we don't often say about rookies. But yeah, I mean that's a big break for the Jets if he can play, especially with a young quarterback who's probably prone to speeding up and making some mistakes if you have a player like that out there.
So if he doesn't go, if he's not ready to go by Sunday, and we won't know that till Sunday, I can guarantee you that, because Nick, Mr. Tactical Advantage, will not be informing the world as to his status. He's going to want to keep the Jets guessing. That's the bad news. Good news is Fletcher Cox full go at practice yesterday.
Fletch is ready to go, so that helps.
Saw him partying in the Philly locker room after the game. So I'm guessing, no question, Fletcher Cox is going to be able to play on Sunday. If he can go and throw champagne around with the Phillies, he's got to be good to go for the Jets.
He's ready to go. Fletch even heard Robert Saleh talking about giving Jalen Hurts 11 kisses because someone asked him about Breece Hall and the year that he's having and the big play ability that he's brought to the Jets. And he's probably the Jets, biggest concern on offense right now. He said, we got to give him 11 kisses every carry. So, yeah, he's ready to go. And that'll help. Sidney Brown talked to him for a long time. He's going to play. That'll help. Justin Evans had a big knee brace on. I don't think he's going to play. And I don't think Slay's going to play. And that popped out of nowhere either. I mean, he was his usual jovial self after the game in Los Angeles. He was holding court. And all of a sudden he pops up on the injury report Wednesday. He didn't even practice, so it couldn't have happened in practice. Had to happen in the game. But I can't get the sneaking suspicion that they want to make sure he's optimal for Miami and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and all those guys. Again, the Eagles, I mentioned it yesterday on the show. The Eagles would never admit it, but I think, they look at this game as a little bit of a breather from a defensive perspective, at least in the passing game. And probably being cautious, but that's just my speculation there.
Could this possibly be? And at some point, I'm going to have to cop to this because Rashad Penny has become a complete non-factor. I suggested that at some point during the year, you would see the Eagles take a running back and put him on load management. Again, they'd create some kind of quasi-injury, kind of like this one with Slay, which you're telling us Sunday in the locker room, perfectly fine, no practice unless he slipped in the shower, and they haven't said he slipped in the shower. It could be a load management thing. You just kind of laid it out the way they might be looking at Slay's status. I thought that could happen at running back this year. Now, it hasn't played out that way because they seem to be afraid to get Rashad Penny up for any games. So they don't have the depth, or at least they don't have in their own belief, the perceived depth that I thought they were going to have coming into the season. Going load management at quarterback, huh? At cornerback, huh?
Well, I wouldn't describe it as that. I look at last night. Travis Kelce's playing at a high level, impressing Taylor Swift, yada yada yada. He's got an ankle injury. He's still making plays. Guys play through injuries all the time. I'm not questioning if Slay has an injury. I'm saying there are certain injuries where you can be cautious with on a certain week versus, if it were Miami, you might need him out there. And he might be capable of playing. And by the way, this is just purely my speculation. I'm not reporting.
Both I'm going there with you, buddy. Yeah. You don't have to take this.
Well, some people think, say, oh, McMullen said he's sitting down, but people hear what they want to hear. I'm not doubting he's hurt. He's got an ankle injury. I'm not saying
I am
making up. Yeah, well, blame that one on Jody.
Yeah, I'm absolutely put it on me. I'm saying that, and I wasn't even there. I'm taking John at his word that Slay looked fine in the locker room afterwards. He didn't limp. He didn't say anything about it. Nobody questioned him about it. And all of a sudden, he hasn't practiced yet this week. I'm suggesting that he's not as hurt as would usually take to keep Darius Slay out of the lineup for a game coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, I think there's different levels of, and again, the Eagles would never admit it. They wouldn't even admit it off the record because they don't want to disrespect another team. But I think human nature factors into it. And I think, there's a little room to be more cautious with an injury this week than perhaps another week is how I'll describe it. And that's why I bring up Travis Kelce. He's clearly hurt, but he's playing through it. He's still making plays.
And oh, by the way, they're playing one of the worst teams in football last night in the Denver Broncos, and they did win. Another head-scratching decision by the Broncos coach, which we may or may not get to today. But that was just another lousy effort. Talk about just a quick Birds 365 revisit. I will ask you direct question, John McMullen. Were the Philadelphia Eagles interested in Russell Wilson?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Did they make a sincere effort to try and acquire Russell Wilson?
Well, no. I would say no, because Russell never gave them the opportunity. So
inquire. Not acquire, inquire. Oh, yeah. Did they seriously inquire about Russell Wilson?
Yes.
Okay. How's he playing for the Broncos?
Not well, but I always say situations matter. I don't think it would be as bad here as it is there. However, I think the Eagles got lucky. And,
they did. Did the Eagles seriously inquire, not acquire, inquire about Deshaun Watson?
Yes.
How's he playing for the Cleveland Browns? He's not playing for the Cleveland Browns these days. Probably a no-go for the Cleveland Browns these days. Good luck again. The Russell Wilson dodged a bullet. Deshaun Watson dodged a bullet. Yeah, Both of those guys were surely targeted before Jalen Hurts became Jalen Hurts here in Philadelphia.
Yeah. You could even go so far as Zach Wilson, to be honest, because they loved him in the draft and felt they couldn't get to a point where they could acquire him and sort of tapped out because they obviously have a close relationship with Joe Douglas. So they knew they were kind of blocked and they went in a different direction, but they had a ton of interest in Zach Wilson. Yeah, there's a lot of times it's better to be lucky than good.
The Eagles are lucky to have Jalen Hurts, which certainly we'll talk about plenty today. All right, one more thing before we get our first guest up, which will be Paul Domowitch from 33rdteam.com, and his stat pack will be up on JAKIBsports.com well in advance of today's Sunday's game against the Jets.
That's already up. JAKIBsports.com.
Does it go up? I thought it didn't go up till Friday afternoon.
No, it's up. It's up right now. A lot of good nuggets in there.
Go to JAKIBsports.com to catch up on Damo, or just stay tuned here because Damo's going to share most of it with us when he jumps aboard. Roster juggling. We speculated on it yesterday. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think you said that, come on, we're going to do this whole punter up, cut him, and then sign someone else to the practice squad and bring him up 3 weeks at a time. Maybe Braden Mann actually gets the gig. He did, as of yesterday, officially signed to the roster. They used the spot that they had for Cam Jerkins to the IR. Mann has been fine. That's how they fine. Not uninspiring, not bad, but fine so far. And they're fine with fine. If they have a game like they did against Rams, they only have to punt once the entire game. That'll be fine too. I'm fine with them making the move that they did, but I thought they were going to leave that open for Nakobe Dean to get into the lineup on Sunday. Again, limited yesterday, and you had limited view of practice. They going overly cautious with Nakobe as well, and do you think he won't be dressed?
No, I if I had to bet, I'd say Nakobe's going to play, and I said this with Nakobe and to a certain extent Sidney Brown as well. And this is just my own thought. This is a perfect week to get him involved, get him back in the mix, and try to get them as a part of it, because I think Justin Evans, pretty clear he's not going to play. So either go back to Terrell Edmonds or give Sidney Brown a shot. I think this is a perfect opportunity to give Sidney Brown a shot. He can make a mistake or two this week and get some of the startup costs out of the way. It's probably not going to hurt you that much. And then Nakobe, shake the rust off again. If you're looking at Nakobe's game, it's, the biggest question marks would be the coverage aspect of it. And again, it's an easier week than typical in that aspect. So I think it's a perfect opportunity to get them both involved. With Brown, I don't know. They might default to Terrell Edmonds because the veteran presence, knows how to play and all that. So I'm more, but with Nakobe, yeah, I mean, he's ready to go. And I don't think the Eagles are going to be, again, we talk about the 3 sacks. Like fans are going to get enamored by the 3 sacks. The Eagles know what went on there. And Nick Morrow deserves all the credit for cleaning up and making plays, but they know Nakobe's a better linebacker, and that's where they want to get eventually. And he's healthy as your best linebacker. He's back in there.
All right, so we're back to the same repetitive question I think we've been asking each of the last 4 weeks. Somebody's got to go. If you're going to reinstate Nakobe Dean off the injured list, then someone needs to come off the 53-man roster. In a week where we don't know Jalen Carter's status, I doubt that it's going to be Contavious Street. My default position is always Contavious Street.
No,
not sure why.
Forget about Contavious. No, he's solid. He's
right.
Solid.
He actually played okay last week when he got to. They were down a couple of DTs, so he got a couple of snaps in there. And unlike Derek Barnett, actually showed up on the stat sheet. Where are they?
Not going to be Derek either. Unfortunately for you.
Yeah.
I would say, judging by the brace, it could be Justin Evans to IR. You could do it that way. But if I were to pick a player, if Justin Evans isn't going to be out 4 weeks or something of that nature, and you can't tell by braces, but he was wearing a big brace. I would bet, unfortunately, I would bet on Mario Goodrich as being the guy. That would be my guess.
In a week where Slay might be sitting, I know Goodrich is.
Or, it could be Rashad Penny as well. They've been working out. They brought in a practice squad running back, Brian Kovac. They worked out another one. I forget his name. If they have confidence in those guys, might even be Penny, but I would lean more towards Goodrich.
And they will keep that under wraps till Sunday when they head up to Turnpike to take on the Jets. All right. It is time for our first guest. Joining us next is our buddy Paul Domowitch, 33team.com, and his stat pack, John tells me, is already up on JAKIB Sports. I don't know why I didn't think it went up till Friday afternoon. I thought that Domo would do us a solid and keep it under wraps until he came on our show on Friday.
We need shelf life.
No, he puts it up on the website first. Thank you very much, Domo.
12-0, by the way, the official number, Jody. 12-0. Eagles.
The Jets have lost 12 straight to the Eagles. They're going for the 13th. I thought it was actually 13. Getting ahead of myself as a loser Jet fan. All right, Jody Mack coming back. We'll talk about Eagles, Jets, and a couple other things around the National Football League with Paul Domowitch. He's up next here on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, Mac guys with Paul Domowitch, our buddy from JAKIBSports.com and 33team.com as well. All right, Domowitch, I'm starting with you right away. I see you noted that of the last 10 Super Bowl champs, only one, the Denver Broncos, had a lower red zone success than the 5-0 Eagles. Repeat, teams that lost the Super Bowl coming back the next year. Yeah, they got issues in the red zone. That's a very fair statement to make. But I'm going to ask you this one. Of the Super Bowl losers coming back to take another shot the next year, who is the only team to start the next year 5-0? There has only been one team in the history of the Super Bowl since they started it, after losing, came back the next year, opened up 5-0. Do you know who that team is?
Well, I'm going to do the math here, Jody. Since the Eagles are 5-0 and they lost last year in the Super Bowl, I would say, could it be the Eagles?
No, I mean, after you go to the Super Bowl and lose, and then the next season come out and open up the season 5-0. Only happened once where a loser in the Super Bowl the next year started 5-0.
Besides the Eagles. Yeah, beside the Eagles.
Oh, it was the 81 Eagles, I know.
The 1981 Eagles, after going and losing to the Raiders, started the next year 5-0. It's the only time it's ever happened. And the Eagles have now done it for the second time after the previous Eagles Super Bowl iteration went there. We need better results because that Eagle team finished up 10-6.
They started 6-0, Jody.
6,
They
right?
opened and Dick it still haunts Dick Vermeil.
A little bit. That next season wasn't near as successful as the one before. All right, Damo, since you noted in the column the red zone struggles that the Eagles are having, what's the solution?
Jalen's got to, they got to get better passing the ball in the red zone because teams have doubled down and are taking away the run. They're taking away Jalen's running inside the 20. They're basically saying, beat us with the pass if you can. And, he hit Goddard Sunday, which was a positive, thing to see. But I think it was only his third red zone touchdown pass in his last 8 or 9 starts. That's just not the way they've been operating, going back to last season. I mean, they get down there, they just grind it out. He runs, and teams are, they've got to be, they're a diverse team in the other 80, in the 60 yards between the 20s. They need to show that they can throw the ball down there. I mean, we need to see more of Goddard. We need to see more of AJ Brown in the end zone, and Jalen's got to let it fly.
All right, caution the Eagles fans because these numbers are going to be terrifying. So I want them to be ready. You're right. It's so strange, Damo, because they might be the most diverse offense in football between the 20s and the least diverse offense inside the red zone. And boy, the numbers you gave with Jalen in the red zone, passing the football, 30th in red zone completion percentage, 8 for 18, 44.4%. 34th in red zone passing yards, tied for 28th in touchdown passes in the red zone, and 34th in yards per attempt. There's only 32 starting quarterbacks.
How do you end up 34th?
Yeah, well, that means backups. There's other guys. Yes, that's not good. And part of it, I don't want to make excuses for Jalen, but part of it is they just don't throw the football, and they have these two big bodies in AJ Brown, Dallas Goedert. I gotta blame coaching staff more than Jalen Hurts. Do you think that's fair or unfair?
It is, but I understand. I kind of understand where they're coming from. I mean, the Eagles finished third in red zone production last year.
Yeah,
I mean, doing it their way, 68% running inside the 20 last year, and nobody stopped them. I mean, they just blew everybody away down there. I mean, they scored touchdowns, and Jake Elliott had to make his money somewhere else. This year, like I said, off-season teams had a chance to spend the off-season looking at film, looking at ways to try to stop this team. And they said, okay, we're going to probably have our problems stopping them between the 20s. But when they get down there, when the field shrinks, Jalen's not as good a quarterback when he can't throw deep, when the deep option to AJ and Devonta isn't there. Let's stop that run. Let's take away his run lanes. Let's take away the RPOs, the draws that he runs, and let's make him throw the ball. And that's kind of where we are now. Now, that doesn't mean Jalen can't do it, because I think he can. I mean, I think, he just needs to show them that he can do that. And when, once they start having success down there with the pass, it goes back to opening everything up.
All right, I don't have this in front of me. I'm trying to get it, and I can't get it quick enough before I got to answer this question. Give credit where it's due. Brandon Lee Gouton had this up on Bleeding Green, I think on Monday. Possessions in the red zone, where DeAndre Swift is the main back. The Eagles have, in 11 possessions, gotten 6 touchdowns and 5 field goals, which is still not a great percentage, 6 out of 11. but ones that Kenny Gainwell has been the number one back. They've got 1 touchdown and 4 field goals and 1 loss on downs and a couple of end of gamers, which if you're just running out the clock, you're doing what you're supposed to. But the touchdown percentage is much higher with DeAndre Swift than it is with Kenny Gainwell, yet they continue to put Gainwell in when they get to the red zone. Is it time to give up that shift, Damo?
Well, I mean,
just because they trust the guy because he's been around for 1 more year. What does DeAndre Swift have to show that he should have, at a minimum, the same role Miles Sanders had last year on this team?
Yeah, I mean, John and I talked about this on my podcast earlier in the week. They've got to be careful with Swift. He's entering an area that he's never been in before. He's averaging 18 plus touches a game. This isn't a workhorse back. This isn't a guy you want to pound, or else you might as well. He'll be watching the playoffs from IR. So you got to be very careful there. Gainwell's Gainwell's impressed me this year with his tackle breaking ability. He picked up 2 big first downs on Sunday after runs on yards after contact. I haven't noticed that. I don't know what the circumstances are on some of those when he's been in. They've probably been in the fourth quarter, late in the game. A couple of those red zone opportunities they squandered, were kind of like Sunday when they were just killing the clock. The bottom line is, the numbers, they're averaging, their whole team is averaging 2.39 yards per carry in the red zone. Last year they averaged well over 3. So, I'm not going to put the blame on Kenny Gainwell solely. Like I said, Jalen's not running effectively down there. Swift hasn't when he's been in there. The only thing that works down there is when they do get to the 1, that's a sure thing because they're going to go to the tush push. But, teams, like I said, teams have devoted everything to stopping them in the red zone.
Yeah. And Damo, has the numbers there when it comes to DeAndre Swift and touches, 18.2 per game. He's never touched that. His highest with the Lions, it was 10.5, 16.4, 12.3. Even at Georgia, it was 15.7, 13.9, and 6.5. So he doesn't have a history. And think about this. He only touched it 2 times in week 1. So it's 89 touches over 4 games, which is 22 plus touches a game. So, yeah, I think if anything, they have to scale back DeAndre a little bit when it comes to a touches standpoint. And right now, I think more of the equation is, all right, if you don't like Kenny Gainwell that much, and by the way, the Eagles do, so I don't think from their perspective, but then you have to start talking about Boston Scott or even Rashad Penny. I don't think his numbers can go up. I mean, 22, that's, in this, that's Derrick Henry-esque. I don't think, if anything, I think the touches got to go a little bit backward moving forward.
If that's the case, then I'm just suggesting save him for the red zone. If you say, we're getting to a point where we're not, let's let him get into the end zone, which seems to be the one thing we're all questioning about the Eagles and their ability in the red zone. Kenny Gainwell has gotten, you talk about the imbalance between Gainwell and Swift. I'm guaranteeing you in the red zone, they're about even. And that's, Johnny told me this from, the beginning of practice this year. They trust Kenny Gainwell. High leverage situations, they work Gainwell. They're going to give it to Gainwell. I'm not seeing it. Dahmer, you think he's been breaking tackles. I somehow missed those plays. I don't know. I have not seen any of that out of Kenny Gainwell this year.
Well, and you haven't been watching. You didn't watch last week's game.
Did either of those two end up in him getting in the end zone? I don't think so.
I will say also when Kenny, and again, he's, role players. We've been talking about role players a lot this week. He's their best pass protector as well, so that factors into
But wait
it.
a minute, that's the tallest midget in the circus, right?
Well, yeah, I agree with
they're
that.
they're not good at that at all. He might be
But
the
I
best of
mean,
a bad lot.
Swift. It's ironic because Swift was pretty good in Detroit, at least from PFF perspective last season as a pass protector. He's been. That's the only thing he hasn't done well. It's a big red mark. It's down in the 20s. He's been really bad as a pass protector here. And yeah, Kenny's just been acceptable, but he did a good job last week. And as Damo mentioned in the Rams game, he did a pretty good job chipping at times. So that factors into it as well. And, you got to have this is not, as I said, DeAndre Swift has been great. He's fourth in the league in rushing. So he's been one of the best backs in the NFL, but this is not the guy I look at and say he can be Adrian Peterson in his prime and just take on 30 touches, or Derrick Henry and stand that level of pounding. So I do think Damo's right in the fact that you need to be careful with that moving forward. Another interesting nuggets, time of possession. The Eagles have been dominating. Now, when Chip was here, time of possession didn't matter, Damo. And I think it's overvalued at times, but when you see the disparity the Eagles are having, one of the things is their defense is never on the field, so that helps. They've had so many long drives offensively, and they're more, let's be honest, they're more talented on the offensive side of the football overall than the defensive side. So the complementary nature of football, they lead the league in rushing attempts. You had their highest time of possession so far since 1989, which is when they started tracking the numbers. These drives are impressive, even when they don't finish them, Damo.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why their run game is so big to their success, you look around the league right now, everybody's playing the Vic Fangio too deep.
Drives me insane, by the way. Drives me nuts.
They're just not giving up the deep ball. And to the Eagles' credit, they've managed to get several in the last 2 weeks. They still throw it down there because they've got guys like A.J. Brown and Devonta who can catch 50-50 balls. Mm-hmm. So that helps. But the fact that they have a run game, that's been so effective, and that they don't fumble very seldom, at least. They can do these 12, 14, 16 play drives and survive if they can keep, take it from, inside the 20 and then not have to go with a 95-yard field goal by Jake Elliott.
Then if the Eagles are one of the best at keeping the football and winning time of possession, and the Jets are one of the worst at losing time of possession, and their offense is getting off the field rather quickly under Zach Wilson, can we see a 40-20 split this week? Can the Eagles actually double up the Jets in time of possession?
I think they have to, given, I guess Slay is not going to play, John.
Doesn't look like it. Yeah, that popped up out of nowhere. Now Jalen popped up. Jalen Carter popped up after practicing Wednesday. Doesn't practice Thursday. Justin Evans has a big knee brace on. He played the entire game. That popped up. There was no indication he got hurt in the game, and all of a sudden he's got this giant knee brace on. It's a tough sport, man. Guys play through things.
Even with Zach Wilson back there, I don't think I want Job and Mario Goodrich and some of these other guys, whoever they're going to use, on trying to cover Garrett Wilson.
Garrett's a good player, man. If Aaron Rodgers was there, boy, this would be a marquee game if Aaron Rodgers was playing.
Yeah.
Jets have a great defense. If they could do anything in the passing game, and obviously they would be, even though the 4 plays weren't working out, and people would say, well, the offensive line stinks. Aaron would have figured it out, and Garrett Wilson would be a star by now. This would have been a real test. Now it doesn't look like a test, other than Robert Saleh saying they'll give 11 kisses. So I got to get you. I don't want to talk about it, but I got to talk about the tush push, cheek sneak, brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it. The Eagles, and I've said this for a while, and Jody knows this. I think it's window dressing. I really do. I think they're converting it without the push. Because I think Kelsey's a big part of it, and the power of Landon Dickerson as well. But they got a quarterback who can squat 600 pounds, and nobody else has a quarterback that can squat 600 pounds. I think people miss that part of the equation. And I have said this from a counterintuitive standpoint. I think if more teams, I think it helps, even though they've been unsuccessful and everybody points, nobody else can do it. That's because their quarterbacks aren't as strong as Jalen Hurts. And if they keep practicing it, it will help them more than it helps the Eagles, because they're getting it anyway, because he's just going to push the pile. Am I nuts, or do you buy into that at all?
I mean, I think it's more than window dressing. I don't know that you can go, you go back to before they started doing it last year. Jalen's quarterback sneak rate was still high. And I agree with you. I agree with you that he'd probably still be making most of these. But, I think for one thing, it plays with the defense's mind. I mean,
yes, that I agree with.
You don't even hesitate on 4th and 1. You go up there and get 3 yards like they're getting now, 2 and 3 yards, which is amazing. I mean, that takes the air right out of a defense. And I told John this the other day, Jody, we're going to see at some point here, and I think they're going to wait until a big game to do it. San Francisco, Dallas, we're going to see them throw off this. We're going to see them pitch it out. After they get everybody thinking, nothing else is going to happen, but Jalen just bulldozing behind his line and getting pushed. They're going to do something funky and beat a team down the field. So it's amazing. I mean, right now, 8 of those 15 tush pushes on and 1 situations have gained more than 1 yard.
Yeah.
They've gained 2, they've gained 3. It's just
well, I'm not saying it doesn't help, because they at times they get 3 yards, as you mentioned, and he's getting pushed down the field. But I can't help thinking. So you bring up San Francisco. Well, Brock Purdy isn't as strong as Jalen Hurts, but if they stick, I don't even know who their backup left tackle is back there, and all of a sudden it's a 24-24 game and it's 4th and 1, and then they have a backup left tackle pushing a guy who maybe isn't capable of getting it on a normal side, I think all of a sudden it turns in the other direction. But I agree with you. They are in people's heads with this. And that part is real. I will say.
I'll give you the perfect scenario where it's going to happen against San Francisco or whoever else it is, whatever game comes up. You need it to be 3rd and 1. That way, if you take the shot on 3rd, you end up in the end zone or an incomplete. And then on 4th and 1, you go, now we'll stick it down your throat. And you run it anyway on 4th and 1 and get the first down. That, if it's going to happen, which I think you're onto something, it'll happen on a perfect situation where they have not only the 3rd down to take the chance, but then the 4th down to get the first down anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of a team that can get short first downs on 4th down. It just totally turns 3rd down into I don't know what they're going to do down. They may go deep. They do. You can't figure out what they're going to do. It just opens up all sorts of possibilities, which creates problems for the defense.
Yeah. Defense. We'll talk Eagles defense, because you also broke down the blitz numbers for Sean Desai, which have spiked over the past 2 weeks, and I'm a little surprised how much they blitzed Matthew Stafford. I wasn't surprised that they hit a high against Sam Howell, the young quarterback. I'm a little bit surprised they were still up near 30% against Matthew Stafford. Now, part of that is low number of plays, so the percentage gets a little bit spiked. But did that surprise you at all that they went after Matthew Stafford so much?
It did, because, I mean, I understood what, Sam Howell, inexperienced quarterback. Those are the kind of guys that typically a team that doesn't blitz a lot will go after. I mean, so that didn't surprise me. They blitzed, I think, 30% against Washington versus 29.5 or something like that against last week. But yeah, they don't. This is a veteran quarterback, but I think they just felt that their defensive line could so overwhelm this offensive line and put pressure on him that they were going to go after him. They weren't fearful of the running game because the Rams don't have a running game. So the first half, they weren't getting a lot of pressure on him, consistent pressure at least, even with the blitz. And Kupp was carving them up. I mean, Stafford to Kupp, Stafford to the BYU guy, whose name I keep forgetting every time we talk about it.
Puka Nacua, yeah.
Second half, different story. I mean, I don't know if, besides the fact that they were suddenly in Stafford's face with 4 and 5 and 6 man rushes, they also, they brought in Bradley Roby, who was doing a terrific job of covering, better job of covering Kupp than they had in the first half with the people they were using.
I do not know if Reed is going to be healthy for the Jets on the corner. He was in a concussion protocol last week and did limitedly practice yesterday. But if he's out there, that means it's probably a good chance he's going to play. And you have he and Sauce Gardner, and Reed's good when healthy, and Sauce is one of the best in the game. If that's the case, do you man up one-on-one, both Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown, because you need to respect the fear that is the speed of Quez Watkins? Thank you for laughing. I appreciate you. Don't know how much I appreciate your laughing.
When I saw him,
Jody's been trying to get this all week. Here, let me throw out my thing, and it's not mine, it's Nick's, which I get. Role players, I think, Nick constantly says, I think they're two different discussions. If you need traffic, if you need production from Quez Watkins, you got to go in a different direction. But I think his speed on the field with A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith makes it easier from a spacing standpoint. I think the Eagles are correct from that standpoint. So if you can stretch the field, maybe have a little bit more space to make Jalen make the throw. That's why they play him, because of his speed. But, I think people get conflated with, he doesn't produce, and Olamide produced a little bit more, but he runs a 4.35 and Olamide runs a 4.55 or whatever. So the spacing is thrown off from Nick's perspective. That's his philosophy. Buy or sell?
Sell.
Yeah.
I mean, I buy some of it. He mentioned his blocking and also.
Yeah, I don't see the blocking, by the way.
Yeah,
I don't see the blocking at all. Yeah.
No.
We saw a blocking wide receiver last year in Zach Pascal. He was good at it. We were able to visually see.
The blocking, he's
come on.
Yeah.
150 pounds soaking wet or whatever the hell he is. That's not my idea of a wide receiver, a blocking wide receiver. But his speed does create, at least it's something they got to think about, and it creates some room for other guys, including Goddard, theoretically. And Oz is adequate. I mean, one of the things they need to do in the draft or free agency this year is go get I'll tell you a guy. I don't know if you guys watch many Oklahoma games. Bob Stoops, his son, Drake Stoops. I mean, the guy is the quintessential. He's Hunter Renfrow younger. He's just the slot wide receiver you want in an offense. And that's
I think that's Cooper Kupp, Damo. I'm going to go Cooper Kupp. That guy created more separation.
He's available, Johnny.
I've ever seen in the slot. I don't know how much it was Kupp and how much it was Goodrich and Ricks, but I've never seen so much separation in the middle of the field It was something to behold from SoFi Stadium. That guy's phenomenal.
He really
and by the
is.
way, I criticized Sean McVay, man. He went away from it. That's where I credit the Eagles coaching staff. When you're giving them something, they take it and they keep doing it until you stop it. And Sean McVay was like, "Yeah, let me try something different." They're getting used to it. They can't do anything with them. Yeah,
it
was
this week because of a lot of because of what I saw last week in that first half. I mean, Zach Evans isn't Matthew, or Zach Wilson isn't Matthew Stafford. He's not going to. But Garrett Wilson is in the. I mean, he's
very good.
Discussion as far as and they've got Alan Lazard and and they got Cobb who's got 3 catches. I don't know what the hell's going on there. I mean, they brought him over, I guess, because he was going to catch passes from Rodgers.
Yeah.
But anyway, they got receivers they can get the ball to. They've got Breece Hall. You really don't want this offense, the Jets offense, even with Zach Wilson, you don't want them to have the ball a lot Sunday. So I think we're gonna, they're going up against a Jets defense that is one of the best in the league, but they're 29th against the run. So what does that tell me? That tells me they're going to run the ball a lot this week.
All right. By the way, the kid from Oklahoma that you're talking about, the quintessential slot receiver. If you believe Nick Sirianni, if you take him at his word, they don't want that. They need the slot guy to be a guy who gets deep, so as to open things up for Smith and Brown. Okay, if that's your philosophy, that's your philosophy. I'd rather have a guy who could catch the football, but that's just me. I give you a couple guys to look at, though, this weekend. If you're watching any college football, Washington's got 2 kids that can both get behind the defense. Michael Penix is having a real nice year. He's not going to win a Heisman, but he's going to get votes, and he may end up in New York. Rome Odunze and another kid by the name of Jalen McMullen. They got some speed on the outside with Washington. They got a big game against Oregon. Both teams are undefeated. I think it's 3:30 on ABC or something like that. So if you're looking for the guy who's going to take Quez's job, because Quez is not coming back here next year, despite his unbelievable world-setting tracks ability to stretch.
Well, now Jody downplays. He can run. I mean, that's not in debate. I mean, the guy is.
All right, I'll try this again. To give you a shot, Damo. Who do you want stretching the defense? Quez Watkins or Devin Allen? Who's faster?
Well, I mean,
you got Devin Allen. He's right there in the practice squad. You got a guy who wins gold medals. Sprinting. Why didn't you put him out there? If that's the key, is a guy who can just flat out go. Give me the faster guy.
Devin also took off from football for 6 years. I mean, you do have to be able to play. I think you're downplaying. Quez is an NFL receiver. He's just not a very good one. Or I wouldn't even say that. He's fine as a 4th guy or a 5th guy. He's a legit NFL player. Devin Allen's more of a developmental prospect, and it's not just
27. Joe, why is he here if he's still a developmental player at age 27?
That's a
good question. This is my feeling. I'm not as obsessed with a speedy slot receiver as Nick is. I mean, I want a guy that can catch the ball, never going to drop it, is going to, is a good blocker, knows how to find space in zones. That's what I want out of a slot receiver. Right now, if I were that head coach, I would have Greg Ward out there before I would have Quez Watkins in the slot.
Yeah, they wouldn't. You remember. And this is why I know, not that Nick is right, but Nick is telling the truth. He's not lying. That's what he wants. But you remember the Giants game where people went berserk because it looked like, who was the receiver, Jody, was open? The Jalen Reagor game where he dropped 2 passes. And Nick just went into a...
Wasn't it? When Smitty was a rookie.
Nick just went into a dissertation about how they didn't get the right depth on the routes and all this about spacing. And it was Belichickian. He spent 10 minutes saying,
I remember that.
This has got, he really believes in the spacing aspect of his offense, and everything's got to be, if it's 8 yards, you got to be at 8 yards. And the open, and it makes the throws easier. And remember, the traffic guys are A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert. And they can't even get them the football consistently. Devonta caught one pass last week.
Yeah.
Dallas got it. So the fourth guy, and you can now argue DeAndre Swift is the fourth guy. So you might even kick him down to the fifth guy. That's why I buy into his, and I know he's telling the truth. That's why he's out there, Quez. He's not, because he's not producing. But it is meaningful for him because he believes it, and he used to be a receiver, obviously, at the college level. And he believes in, man, you got to be in the right spot, right depth at all times. He is particular.
Can I ask you a quick question? And then we got to get Domo out of here because he's got more important things to do than talk to us. Did the coach show the breakdown of the route that Quez ran on Sunday against the Rams? Because they did show it on NBC Sports Philadelphia, and former Eagle Jason Avant pointed out that Quez Watkins ran a bad route, and Jalen threw the ball.
He always runs bad routes. That's it. He ran a bad route in that game I was talking about.
Playing
and the right game. Well, remember at the time, one of the issues with and I love Eagles fans, God bless them, because I said before they acquired AJ Brown, there was all this hype, and we were doing the show, and Jody, you remember, and I said they got to get better at second receiver. They got to get better. They got to get better. And they were like, no, Quez is fine. I said, no, he's not. No, he's not fine as a wide receiver too. Then you get AJ Brown, everything falls into place. Now it's different. As a third receiver, I got no problem with it. He's not catching the ball anyway. If he helps with the spacing, he helps with the spacing. If he doesn't, he doesn't, and they'll go in a different direction.
Johnny Mac.
But AJ,
I hope you're 100% right, because the other thing you got to remember, and you and I have been down this road, Dom will confirm this for me, we're one sprained ankle away from
that's a different conversation.
But don't you have to factor that in when you put your roster together? You have to have a safety net, don't you? Quez is a safety net with a big hole in the middle of it.
Well, I would argue then you ship to Olamide, and then Olamide jumps ahead of Quez. That's how I would do it. If I need traffic, I'm throwing it to Olamide more than I'm throwing it to Quez. Right, but if I have AJ,
if Quez and Olamide are on the field at the same time, who's outside? Which one's not in the slot?
Well, Quez is outside because Quez can run.
Like I said, that would be Quez replacing the injured AJ Brown and Devonta Smith.
Well, first of all, you can't replace great players. Nobody can replace AJ Brown. Tennessee couldn't replace him when he got hurt there. You can't replace, so you got to make do. You got to persevere, like the Eagles have done with Josh Jobe when he's had to play at outside corner. He can't replace James Bradbury. He can't replace Darius Slay this week. But you got to find a way to persevere. And I think the Eagles have it built in that where if AJ suffers a sprained ankle, Olamide will get more traffic than Quez. But if AJ and Devonta are out there, they want Quez for the spacing aspect. That's I believe the plan, which makes some sense to me, to be honest.
My thing is their number 3 receiver should be irrelevant. I mean, they've
irrelevant. That's my point.
It is because he's not catching the ball. But
yeah,
I mean, they are. This year, you're seeing with Brian Johnson, they're throwing to the running backs, Gainwell and Swift. Swift had 6 catches Sunday. Yeah. As I wrote in the column at JAKIB Sports, their receivers have 22% of their completions this year. Last year it was 13. They've already got 25. Last year they had 48 the whole year. As the year goes on, they're going to be throwing more and more to these guys. They go with so many damn empty sets. They're going to use these guys in routes. Whether you got Watkins there or in Bermuda, it doesn't matter. I mean, they've got plenty of weapons. They can afford to have a guy that doesn't know where the hell he is.
All right, Damo, Jets, Eagles, all-time record, 12 wins for the Eagles, 0 wins for the Jets. Is it going to 13-0? And is this going to be a style points week, or are we going to be talking on Monday about style points don't matter? It's the NFL. How's it play out on Sunday? The 2 green teams going against each other.
The Slay Carter injuries have me a little bit concerned. I think, I'm going to pick this as a close game. I mean, I think the Eagles are going to win it because Zach Wilson's a quarterback, and they'll figure out a way to either get a couple strip sacks or interceptions. But I think it's going to be a 2017 game, Eagles.
Oh.
Check out all his info on JAKIBSports.com. Damo Stack Pack is a must-read leading into each and every single Eagles Sunday matchup. Damo, thanks, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you, guys.
33rd team as well. Make sure you read Damo there. Birds Report, the podcast. I was on this week. He does a tremendous job on that. I got to run. I'm getting too wordy. I see Mark Barzetta. I want to thank him. I got to throw to you, Jody, 24-14. I got the Eagles. And I got to do some.
14. I got to write this down. 24-14.
Yeah. And I got to do some business on air. Brian Cameron is going to be in an hour too. It's pushed back to 9:30. He's got something he's got to do. So you and Mark got to carry the load till 9:30 and hopefully he shows up.
Farzi's very good at talking.
Yeah, he's very good. He's very good at talking. It's tremendous. He's better at talking than me.
Really good attribute to have for what he does for a living. So I think we'll be okay at that. All right, Johnny Mac, safe travels. 24-14 Birds.
24-14, 6-0.
6-0 is where they're headed. All right, McMullen's out. Mark Farzetta, as formerly mentioned, will be in. Brian Cameron from PhillySportsNetwork.com is going to join us, but not till 9:30. So you got to stick around and wait for him, right? Stay right there.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
And welcome back to Birds 365. Took a couple seconds more to eat my coffee than I thought it was going to. But we're ready to rock for hour number 2. Mark Farzetta in the big chair, filling in for Johnny Mac. He only hosts the Eagles pregame show here on JAKIB Media, the Phillies postgame show on JAKIB Media, the Farzi show and he carves out time for us every once in a while here on Birds 365. That was pretty fun with the Phillies last night, wasn't it?
Oh, baby, was that fun. A little edge of your seat. You had drama. You had home runs. You had the win. You had everything you needed right there, baby. Phillies back in the NLCS. Second straight year. I know I'm excited. I know everyone's excited. All of Philadelphia is excited. Jody, are you excited?
Yeah, so no questions asked, in attendance for not last night's game, the night before. My daughter and I are 4-0 in playoff games that we attended and sat together in the Eagles' last two postseason runs. So it was phenomenal. Last night was great on TV. The night it was just where they put a beat down on them was even more of a party atmosphere, which was great. But let me ask you one quick question. And Eagles fans on the stream appreciate it. We're getting back to the Eagles, promise. But when I get far as here, I got to ask them at least one Phillies question. And it's going to make me look like a jerk. So those who don't like me will be perfectly fine with that. Is Nick Castellanos, who has been stone cold on fire, is he obtuse? Does he not give a flying you-know-what? Because when they try and interview him, he just like stares straight ahead and gives these kind of tough to decipher answers and questions. Guys, when they don't ask questions, you've been doing this for a long time. I've been doing it for a long time. You make a statement and you want someone to react to it. It just annoys the snot of me when I go, is there a question in there? You just won the NLDS and he can't just interpret what a guy is saying to him. He does this all the time. Now, he's stone cold on fire. He's phenomenal. Everybody loves his son, celebrating in the front row. But is he just a weird dude?
Is Scooby-Doo a superhero? Because I don't think Scooby-Doo is a superhero, and I've never heard someone say he's a superhero until Nick Castellanos said he's not only a superhero, he's the greatest and his favorite superhero. So that doesn't make any damn sense. Aloof, I think it's a word. I think if Chase Utley said more what was on his mind, he would be exactly like Nick Castellanos. Neither one wanted to say anything, but at least Nick Castellanos, at least Chase Utley would give you an answer. He would take a setup. And yes, sometimes when you're doing an interview, you don't ask a question. You give a setup. This is nothing new with Nick Castellanos. He literally did this to their own announcer, Tom McCarthy, during the post-game celebration when they clinched their wild card spot. And he also did it to Tom McCarthy last year when he was telling how great he was. And Nick Castellanos says, is there a question in there? Same thing happened last night, as we all know. But here's the thing with Nick Castellanos. The guy gives good sound bites. I mean, you can't say...
He eventually gets around to them, but it's like pulling teeth.
Well,
in the end, he can give you a decent sound bite.
We always respond when we get punched in the face. I mean, that's a great soundbite.
It is. And like I said, he's capable of doing it, but it seems to take a while to get there. But again, and I'm a jerk for raining on their parade. And the Diamondback series should be great. And the Phillies could be back in the World Series. And Farzi will be doing post games for the rest of the month. All right, let's talk about the Eagles and the Jets, Mark Farzetta. I had such high hopes for this being a great game. Got tickets. Going up with my daughter, my one Jet game a year to go to, take off all my broadcast responsibilities on Sunday, just sit and watch and enjoy a game. Why do I get the feeling that this is going to be a stinker on Sunday?
Oh, because it is. It is not going to be a good game. This is going to be a bad game if you're a Jets fan. This is going to be a fun game.
Yeah, but Darius Slay not practicing, might not play. Jalen Carter not practicing, might not play.
Yeah.
You take your shots any way you get them, and the fact that the Eagles may be undermanned on Sunday, does that mean this game, while not necessarily, did you watch? Yeah, I'm sure you watched nothing but the Phillies last night. I had to watch a little of the Thursday game because I do a Twitter Spaces thing at halftime. That was just an ugly football game. It was not enjoyable to watch. The little that I watched, I wanted to turn off. I wanted to turn off because I want to get back to the Phillies. It was an ugly football game. I think this has a chance to be just an ugly football game Sunday at the Meadowlands.
It certainly could. I look at this game a little bit different. I look at this game where the 49ers have had their 40-point performance. The Lions have had their 40-point performance. God knows the Cowboys have had their 40-point performance. And I think this is going to be the Eagles' 40-point performance against this Jets defense. Sorry, my friend. This is going to be an ugly one for multiple reasons. And, yeah, you know why Darius Slay isn't practicing? Because he doesn't have to. That's a big reason why. You know why Jalen Carter came up with an ankle injury all of a sudden? Because he'll be okay if he doesn't practice before this game. I love the fact. Usually I'm terrified at the idea of being overconfident ahead of a game. I bask in the idea of being overconfident about this Jets game. And I'll tell you it's more specifically as to why, my dear friend Jody Mack. This should be a game where the Eagles could overlook an opponent. They could, we talked about the term trap game. I think you only term trap games for home games, I believe it is.
This could be 90% of the time. It's a trap game.
Okay.
It's a home game, yeah.
So that's fair. But Robert Saleh said something about giving the quarterback kisses that makes me think the Eagles are going to say, yeah, go ahead and pucker up because we're gonna have some fun with this game. And I think this is going to be a statement game for the Eagles doing exactly what they're supposed to do. It's one of those. This is a game where you can talk about statements, you can talk about letdowns, you can talk about. I like to refer to this kind of game as a prove it game. Like you are supposed to be miles better than the New York Jets. Miles better than the Zach Wilson-led New York Jets. Prove it. Go put up a 42-13 performance. Go do something like that against this New York Jets team that that has the rest of the league going, oh, I know it's the Jets, but damn, that was something. Go out there and have that 40-point performance. That's what I think. That's how I think the Eagles are looking at.
Okay, I'm not seeing them put up 40 points because despite the fact that in a couple of the statistical categories, the Jets' overall defense is not rated that high. Most of it has to do to one really bad performance where the Cowboys just went up and down the field against them.
Sure.
And flat out destroyed them. And the Jet defense just in general is overly taxed because the Jet offense doesn't move the football and they're on the field a whole hell of a lot. And I do think it's going to be a massive disparity between time and possession between the Eagles and the Jets on Sunday. But they do have some talented players on defense. They have talent. And on any given Sunday, when you have talent, you can put together a decent defensive effort. That's why I'm telling you, this could turn into a punt fest, Farzetta. You got a 40 spot going up. I think it could be a battle of the punters.
All right, well, maybe. But let me ask this. What's the best part of the Jets defense?
Probably their two corners, Reed and Sauce Gardner.
So they are phenomenal. They are phenomenal this year at defending against wide receivers.
And the two Williams brothers in the middle, Quincy and Quinnen. They're good inside and outside. They got talent all over the place. They just haven't.
Yeah, sure. They're going up against the best offensive line in football. So that kind of, I think, is still a win for the Eagles. But if you look at, I think, the biggest mismatch in all of this, so their cornerbacks are something at a rate of like 77, a passer rating of 77 when they're defending against wide receivers, which is seventh best in the NFL. Where they're not so great at, and the Eagles have certainly had this experience as well, is not being good against the tight ends. We certainly have learned that over the course of this season. I didn't know they were second best going into the game against the Rams last week. They were the second worst team against defending against tight end. The New York Jets are 22nd in the league at defending against the tight end. So if you're going to have shutdown wide receivers against these stud wide receivers, and let's just say that's a win for the Jets, which it could be, you better have a pretty damn good tight end to throw the ball to, and you pretty well better have a pretty damn good running back to throw the ball to out of the backfield as well. Oh, yeah, and a quarterback that can break off runs left and right against one of the worst teams against defending against a quarterback run in the league. And the Eagles have that counterpoint or counterpunch to a pretty good left hook that the Jets have against many other NFL teams.
All right, Mr.
42-13. 42-13.
Slightly overconfident Eagle fan here. The Eagles' best offensive line in football. You just said that, right?
That's out loud into the microphone for the audience and yourself, yes.
Why did the Eagles, and I'm going to be kind here and say struggle instead of suck, why did the Eagles struggle in the red zone with the best offensive line in football?
Like, who was it? Brian Snicker said last night, hey, how come you can't beat the Phillies in the playoffs, but you beat them all the time in the regular season? I wish I had the answer to that. Okay. Jody, I wish I had the answer to that.
At least you're honest. I appreciate
Yeah, I'm honest, but I mean, in this game, I don't think they're even going to need the red zone. There'll be 50-yard bombs left and right. But anyway, no, I'm kidding. But yes, I don't know why they struggle in the red zone. If I had to dartboard it, it would be an inexperienced play caller. They have the talent. They have a better offense than they did last year. I think DeAndre Swift is a big reason for that. I think it's got to be the play caller above all else.
I'll give you my answer, and it usually gets frowned upon by my usual partner when he's here. So we'll see if you go down the same road. The guest we had last week kind of came on. Well, no, I disagreed with him too. Kenny Gainwell has not been good this year. Plain and simple. Jody McDonald, talent evaluation, 5 games in. Kenny Gainwell has not been good.
Yeah.
Yet when they get in the red zone, the Eagles, they started the season this way with him starting week 1 and DeAndre Swift getting all of 1 touch. And still to here week number 6, he seems to be the preferred choice when they get to the red zone. Why? What is it that Kenny Gainwell brings to the table that the Eagles keep going back to? Yeah, but we got to get Kenny in the high leverage spot. Yeah, we got to get Kenny in the red zone. Why? DeAndre Swift is just a better player. Now, both John and Damo went down the road of be careful because you're using Swift a lot, and he's never had this kind of workload before, and I can understand that. If that's the case, why not save his carries for the red zone? If we're going to limit what we're going to give as far as Swift, what we're going to feed him, I want to feed him in the red zone, not Kenny Gainwell. Why are the Eagles continuing to pound Gainwell in the red zone?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And when you talk about the enigma of the red zone, that is an excellent point to bring up, Jody. I can't, for the life of me, understand this rooting for Kenny Gainwell over DeAndre Swift in the red zone and Olamide Zaccheaus not getting more targets. More targets. I'm not talking about playing time. I understand you want to stretch the field with Quez Watkins, but I don't understand how Quez Watkins is getting more targets than Olamide Zaccheaus. When you have seen DeAndre Swift show you he can dominate, and you have seen Olamide Zaccheaus show you that he can make clutch catches downfield, that to me, the proof is in the pudding. You have opportunities here to change things and make sure that you're even more of a potent team, a more potent 5-0 undefeated team. I would like to take advantage of some of these other opportunities, and I know people are pointing it out in the chat as well. There's been some missed throws in the end zone. There's been some drop passes in the end zone. But overall, the grand scheme of things, what's the constant, Jody? It's the play calling. It's the personnel. 9 times out of 10, you get the play calling and the personnel right, you're going to score more touchdowns in that red zone. So I don't understand why the Eagles haven't cracked that code yet. They seem to have this, I don't know if it's bias or told you so type of defect mentally when it comes to making sure Kenny Gainwell gets his love and Quez Watkins gets his love too when it comes to the amount of targets. Those are 2 enigmas about the Eagles offense that if they change them, I guarantee they'd be much better in the red zone.
All right, defense side of the ball. And again, not much of a challenge coming up because the Jets offense is limited as long as Zach Wilson is the quarterback, and he will be again this Sunday. So I'm not saying the Eagles fans should have fear of the Eagles defense coming into this week. But if he's actually hurt, and we don't know how hurt the Eagles top cornerback is, John said he was talking to Slay after the game on Sunday, and he showed no inclination to being bothered at all by an injury coming out of the game. And although John didn't say it, I said it. If they're going load management that, Slay, we really don't need you against the Jets. The next week against the Dolphins, we're going to need you pretty big. So why don't you just go ahead and take this week off? No Slay. And the chance that there's no Jalen Carter, it comes out of nowhere. He misses practice yesterday. Those are 2 of their best defensive players. Nobody is going to question it. I know it's only 5 games into the Jalen Carter era, but oh my God, have they been a dominant 5 games? Is the Eagle defense going to be challenged even against a bad offensive team like the Jets on Sunday just because they could be missing key pieces?
So my biggest concern going into this game, if it being real, okay, so let's say obviously the best part of the Jets, I believe, is their secondary and what they're able to do to wide receivers. After that, I don't want this Eagles defensive line looking at Zach Wilson, who gets sacked at least twice a game on average, as if he is that raw piece of meat hanging in the lion's den. And they get so focused on that they forget about Breece Hall and they abandon, trying to get after the run, and they just try to get after the quarterback time and time again because they know they can get after Zach Wilson. They know he can bring him down. They know he's an easy target. Just don't forget about Breece Hall, because if he's just starting to get going at 177 yards last week, might indicate he's starting to get going a little bit. My biggest concern is that they focus too much on getting after the quarterback and forget about the run game. Their run defense has been good. Their run defense has been pretty stout. But when it comes to Breece Hall, you can't forget about him because he will run past you. He'll run past the blitz. The rare occasion you do dial up that blitz. The Eagles, even a game not against Zach Wilson. You look at all their games leading up to this point, you're talking about a team that gets after the quarterback at a 40% rate, which I believe is top 10 in the NFL. So that's pretty damn good. I don't want to forget about Breece Hall. That, to me, could be the difference maker in this game.
And something, again, we probably won't find out till Sunday is whether Nakobe Dean is going to be activated for this game. They opened up his practice window. He did his 4 weeks on the injured reserve list. They could have activated him yesterday. They chose to activate their punter instead. They're not going to go down we'll cut this guy next and just churn the punters one by one throughout the season. And Braidman's been okay. He hasn't been anything special. He hasn't been bad, but he's okay. So they're gonna have to make a roster move. They're gonna have to relieve someone of their roster spot if they're going to activate Nakobe. You think they're looking to give him another week?
I think so, and I hope so. This is something, Jody. I didn't think I'd be saying this 5 weeks into the season in the assumption, like if anyone ever spitballed it and said Nakobe Dean was going to be injured, whatever. Zach Cunningham, Nicholas Morrow has bought the Eagles some time at the linebacker position. They have not been terrible. Morrow is the fourth highest rated by Pro Football Focus linebacker. They've bought Nakobe Dean time. I do believe there will be a transition when Nakobe Dean is 100% healthy and comes back to play, where he ends up taking over the starters reps and he ends up taking more snaps. I don't think it's going to be immediate because, again, these linebackers with Cunningham and Morrow have bought, and this defensive line has bought the linebacker position some time for Nakobe Dean to get healthy. So I'm going to wait patiently. I think the Eagles are going to play this patiently. They don't need him back right now for this game. They have time. If it was up to me, this is the way I laid it out when the news broke that he was activated for the 21-day practice window. Pump the brakes. Take your time. You no need to rush him back right now, and that's something I sure as hell did not expect to say at the start of the season when viewing the linebacker position from afar.
And let this be on the record. This was John McMullen who said this in hour number one, not Jody McDonald. But I agree with him 100%. Could have just as easily been me. If you're going to bring Nakobe back, Mark Farzetta just 20 minutes. It's the Jets. Come on, the Jets. We don't need Slay. We don't. It's the Jets. Get Nakobe back in there.
Yes.
Get that rust off.
Yeah.
Get him a game before next week against the Dolphins and maybe the most prolific offense in the NFL come to town. Don't you think it could be advantageous to get Nakobe some snaps?
Yeah, I already know, Jody, I am pouring on the disrespect to the New York Jets. So I'd like to stop short of,
I'm doing the same here because Johnny said it. I'm going like, you got a point, John. Yeah, maybe that's a pretty good idea.
I don't want to come off too much like, oh, this is nice to have a preseason game 6 weeks into the season. A nice little break for everybody. Don't have to take a game too seriously. No, I want to stop short of that.
The reason I don't have a problem with it is it's Zach Wilson. I think the Jets are going to come, and I think they're going to play some defense. I don't think they're going to roll over like a puppy dog. Zach Wilson stinks. He stunk from the day he put Jet Green on. It hasn't changed. It hasn't gotten any better. Last week, if Breece Hall doesn't go for $177, they don't beat a god-awful team like Denver. If they don't pick up Breece Hall, some Hall picks it up, goes in. It's got nothing to do with their quarterback. You can go ahead and disrespect Zach Wilson all you want as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and as far as I'm concerned, Jalen Carter, man, if he is playing in this game, which I do expect him to play in this game.
You do think he's going to play?
Yeah, this Eagles defensive line. The only thing that scares me, though, is so abrupt. Like, all of a sudden, he just popped up with an ankle injury and didn't practice. Like, I was like, oh, that doesn't sound great. But I think he's going to power through, tape that up, shoot him up, and he's going to be out there playing. I don't think he's going to let anybody tell him not to play. Fletcher Cox also being healthy for this game is a great sign as well. But I think this defensive line is going to go after Zach Wilson like Zach Wilson goes after Cougars. Come on! Anyway, I think it's going to be an easy one there for the Eagles.
I do think that could very well be the case, but it'll be more so because of the Jets' offensive ineptitude than it will be the Jets' defense, which I think will come with a decent effort on Sunday. That's why I think it's going to be a low-scoring, probably less than double-digit competitive game. Fargy, I know you've been watching football long enough. You're watching a game, you're looking at the score, you're realizing that the score is telling you that it's a competitive game, but you're also watching the game, you're going, yeah, but it's really not competitive. They're dominant. Kind of like the Ram game last Sunday. Once the second half started, once the Eagles just kept pounding the ball down their throat, giving the Rams no chance whatsoever. Did you ever, the scoreboard still said one-score game. Eagles could have lost that game to the Rams in mid-third quarter, late third quarter. Did you have the feeling that the Eagles could lose that game? Because I didn't.
No. Control. The only thing, because it was the Rams, the only thing that made me think twice about it was the idea that a lot of the Rams games to this point, through 4 games to that point, came down to the fourth quarter. Like, they were in those games in the fourth quarter. Their offense really didn't start clicking until the fourth quarter. And I knew with Cooper Kupp being back and Puka Nacua playing as well as he's been playing, that they could have a quick strike defense. But the Eagles just kept coming up with answers. Hassan Reddick got going. 3 sacks his last 2 games, as we all know by now. But no, I just felt like the Eagles were in control of that game from start to finish. So, yeah, you're right. It could be that type of game here against the Jets where you're always up 10, 13 points. You always feel like you're in control. The Eagles are in control of this game, and the Jets don't really stand a chance. It's closer than the score indicates a closer game than it really is. That could certainly be the case here, but I just see the Eagles getting their 40 spot this week.
Yeah, when Stafford threw that late interception, third quarter interception. Yeah, I just had no worries that the Eagle defense was going to give it up. They had already kicked in at that point and had a pretty significant lead at that point. Sometimes you just get a feel for the game. All right, Jalen Hurts this week. This was a big topic earlier in the week. We haven't really touched on it today. We saw Jalen Hurts come back as Jalen Hurts the runner this past week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that was by design of the offense? A bunch of his runs came with him just taking off when the first, second option in the pass play wasn't there. Or do you think Jalen Hurts made a self-determination that too many people are talking about me not being able to run? I got to show them this is BS. I can take off and make a play with my left. Ran through tackles, ran aggressively as compared to tentatively, as I said last week. Do you think that was by design, or you think that was Jalen going, yeah, I need to make a statement?
I think sometimes what they say in the media is real, and sometimes what they say is just wildly fake. Like the Eagles not intentionally getting Dallas Goedert the ball on that opening drive. Oh, no, it's just the way it worked out. I don't believe you. Jalen Hurts running more, I don't think has anything to do with with what is being said in the media. I agree with what you said that he looked tentative. He definitely looked tentative. In this game against the Rams, he did not. I think it's a product of circumstance, of coincidence, that it became a storyline and all of a sudden. I don't think that guy gives a damn what we talk about in the media. I don't think going into a game that's affecting the way he plays. If his passing numbers are the way they've been, 3 straight games over 275 yards, getting into the end zone, having the connection that he has with A.J. Brown, I don't think he cares about his running aspect of the game. I know conventional wisdom says the opposite, but I think with Jalen Hurts, opportunities presented itself. You saw him brush off a hit, be able to get that first down against the Rams where it looked like his ankle snapped in 2 and somehow just popped right back into place. He definitely looked more aggressive. I will say that, but with Jalen Hurts, I just don't think that factors in to his decisions on game day.
Yeah, you and I are going to disagree on this one.
Yeah, I thought so.
When he's doing the slide thing for the first 4 weeks, and now all of a sudden he's running through tackles. Something changed.
Sure.
You don't think it's in Jalen's mindset? Yeah, I do. And the only reason why it would because he either looked at the stat sheet and said, oh, shoot, I'm not running for Diddley this year. Or he actually heard some people notice that he wasn't running and mentioning it to the media. And, oh, by the way, the coach defending it after the fact going, Did y'all say he couldn't do it anymore? First of all, when did Sirianni come from down south and go to y'all? I'm still trying to comprehend that. And yeah, nobody in the media said he couldn't do it anymore. We were questioning why he wasn't doing it this year. Well, you don't have to question it anymore because Jalen went out there and said, I run anytime I want. And he did. Ran down the Rams' throats. All right, Jody Mac.
Real quick, Jody, two things. One thing, Patrick Mahomes running more than ever in his career this season. Nobody's talking about it.
I had the over 21.5 yards last night.
Oh, yeah. And then I want to correct myself. I said top 10 in quarterback pressures at 40%, top 6, Miss Scoozy. The Eagles are top 6, pressuring the quarterback 40.2% of the time. 6th best in the NFL.
And the Jets offensive line is A, not good, and B, not healthy. Yeah, they should be able to get some pressure against the.
I thought you were going to say ass. I thought you were going to say Jets offensive line straight
not
ass.
Good, not healthy, bad combo facing the Eagles defensive line pressure this week. All right, quickie timeout, come back. Brian Cameron, our bud from PhillySportsNetwork.com, going to hop in with us for a couple minutes here on a Football Friday on Birds 365.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
At Pond Lehocky, we've recovered billions of dollars for our clients, and we're confident we can do the same for you. With over 250 years of combined courtroom experience, we've helped over 100,000 injured clients obtain some of the largest settlements in Pennsylvania. One conversation is all it takes to help you and your family get back on track. If you've been injured in an accident, give Pond Lehocky a call.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Staffing is not easy, but that's what we do every day, all day. The key to our success is storytelling, asking the right questions to find the right people. Hi, I'm Gary Kane, president of Kane Partners. We want to be your staffing partner.
Since 1977, it's always been about you, the community, at Rafferty Subaru. And through the Subaru Love Promise, we prove we care by supporting charities like So Good Now.
So Good Now helps kids in under-resourced areas by connecting them with student athletes to serve as mentors. We remove barriers so athletes can help youth in the corners of our communities where light and love are needed most.
When you choose Rafferty Subaru, you help organizations like So Good Now.
It's all about you at Rafferty Subaru.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
EAGLES, Eagles.
You got Mac and Mark here with you on Birds 365. We got Brian Cameron from PhillySportsNetwork.com to jump in for a couple minutes. Thank you very much for giving us some of your time, Brian. Here's where I want to go first because I'm getting beat up here on our stream. A plus to F. You know what A plus means? You know what F means. Grade the play of Kenny Gainwell so far in the first 5 games of the season this year for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Sorry about that, guys. The audio was completely off, and I only heard grade the play of Kenny Gainwell. If that's what you're asking.
Yes, that's all you needed to hear. That's exactly what I asked.
I'm
Yes.
to ask about that. I'm not a big fan of when Kenny touches the ball as of late. Sorry, I had to turn my microphone off, so I'm just going full rogue on my iPad. But Kenny Gainwell, I mean, it's interesting, right? They started off the season with giving him a bulk of the carries, kind of making him seem like he was going to be the bell cow for the most part. And then he went down with the injury. But coming back, it's just you don't see much coming out of him when he does have the ball in his hand, as you see with DeAndre Swift or even Boston Scott when Boston Scott was actually before he got concussed. So it's a little concerning to see what I'm seeing from Kenny Gainwell, in my opinion, just the yards per carry aspect. But I'm curious to see what the approach with the running back room is, just from the simple perspective. We have yet to see Rashad Penny do anything. We haven't seen Boston Scott since he had the concussion, and it's mostly been DeAndre Swift.
I'm going to piggyback on Jody's question here because we were shooting out ideas here about what was going on in the red zone and why so many struggles with so many weapons. It just doesn't seem to add up, and Kenny Gainwell seems to be getting a lot of the touches in the red zone. So why do you think, what is your personal theory as to why the Eagles have struggled so much with red zone efficiency?
I think they're not, for lack of a better term, they're not being ballsy enough in the red zone. I think we're playing a little too casual, a little too restricted in my sense. I feel like Jalen, start the season was a little restricted in the pass game as well. In the red zone, you have targets like A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, and it's just a matter of, my thing is, I think Brian Johnson and the coaching staff are just overthinking what they can do in the red zone and just not letting things just fly. I mean, you're in the early parts of the season. You had to make mistakes. It's going to happen. You just got to go out and let it happen.
All right. Do you have any idea how Jalen Carter got hurt? Because he was perfectly fine at practice a couple of days ago. He shows up at practice yesterday, not participating, no information, just out. Now, it doesn't count him out for Sunday's game yet, but it was kind of surprising for him to not be there yesterday. More there than meets the eye. Did you notice him getting hurt? I know you're only limited the amount of time you can have in practice. A little surprised that Jalen Carter was not a participant in Eagle practice yesterday. If he can't go, how big a loss is that for the Eagles against the Jets this week?
It's definitely a big surprise, especially not seeing him. Not seeing him in any kind of pain after the game whatsoever. But it would be a huge loss, right? I don't want to undermine what he's done for the season, right? But also don't want to undermine what they've done with this defensive line rotation. Milton Williams has played a big role. Fletcher Cox has played a big role. He'll be back. Jordan Davis is coming into his own and has kind of been in the shadow of Jalen Carter for the most part. But I don't see Jalen Carter missing this game. I feel like the weird scratch is in my opinion, a little bit random. But I'd be surprised if he misses the game against the Jets.
How serious are you taking this game, Brian? I know you never disrespect an opponent, all that stuff. Say all the right thing, blah, blah, blah. What is your confidence level that the Eagles will come away as a 6-0 football team? And I'm not asking for your prediction just yet, but just overall your confidence level on this game.
So at first, I respected the Jets. I thought, they were, and not to go back to the Aaron Rodgers stuff, right? But I mean, I just feel like they're well.
You have to. How do you not go back to the Aaron Rodgers? It's friggin' Zach Wilson who's going to play for the Jets this week.
I wanted to give them the benefit of the doubt, but I feel like Salah coming out saying that they're going to give Jalen 11 kisses was kind of the wrong move to piss off the wrong guy and piss off the wrong locker room when you have a team like the Eagles where their culture is just. They're just so together in sync with each other where you piss off one guy, you're going to piss off the whole team. I'm very overconfident for the Eagles at this point.
you and Farzad are both there. I actually think the Jet defense can give a decent effort, but they'll do very little on offense. All right, on the Eagles defense side, we talked about Carter. Darius Slay also out of practice. Coming to surprise, John said he talked to him in the locker room after the game on Sunday, and he seemed perfectly fine. Maybe he hurt himself on that long flight across the country on the way home. If Slay can't go, just plug in Job, who has been okay when they moved Bradbury into the slot, not earth-shattering, but not awful either. They played Ricks a little bit last week in the slot, because they didn't know if the new guy was going to be up to speed enough to be able to handle a full load. They still got Kaylee Ringo here. We know he's been very good on special teams, but he can't get on the field for any cornerback snaps. How's it going to break down if Slay is out of the lineup? Who takes his place?
I think it's Josh Jobe, hands down. He's like you said, he hasn't been spectacular, but he hasn't been terrible either. I think he's more than capable. A year under the Eagles system and coming into the season, I had quite a decent amount of expectations for him. I think that when the Eagles signed him, it was a great signing for an undrafted free agent. And I think he's definitely more than capable to take the role. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, you have Garrett Wilson on the other side. You have Miko, if Miko plays, right? It'll be definitely interesting, but I think he's more than capable of holding his own, especially with Bradley Roby in the slot.
So one thing, to go back to your question or your answer there about the red zone, one thing you had said about this Eagles offense is Brian Johnson, maybe Nick Sirianni, overthinking it a little bit. Now they're going to be facing, and I've given this credit to the Jets because they deserve it. Their secondary is pretty stacked. They do a great job, especially and particularly against wide receivers this point this season. What is Brian Johnson going to do against that secondary? How do they compete against that secondary? How do they enforce their will against that secondary for a guy that you say might be overthinking it a little bit, especially in the red zone like Brian Johnson? What do they do against the Jets in this game?
You trust Dallas Goedert. I think that's the answer to everything. And the beginning of the season, you saw the passing game be limited. In my opinion, I thought it was because they didn't have somebody to stretch the field like Quez Watkins. But in the red zone, that's Dallas Goedert's territory, and you have to trust that he's going to find a way to be open. And I think Brian Johnson's thinking was, hey, how do I feed everybody? How do I feed Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown? How do I get the running backs the ball? I think at this point it's just a matter of let Jalen do what he does. You trust Dallas Goedert in the red zone. You trust A.J. Brown in the red zone. You get Devonta Smith involved because you don't want him going cold at all this season. And you just let it rip.
All right, let me go a little further on that because we've already seen two examples of this with the Eagles this year. Week 1, Dallas Goedert, 1 target, 1 for the entire game. So we're all befuddled going into week number 2. And what happens? They come out, they throw the ball together. I think he had 6 targets in the first half, ended the game with 7. Didn't have a whole hell of a lot of yards. I questioned the whole type of usage they had for him. You want Dallas Goedert doing a 2-yard pattern? That makes no sense to me. Mm-hmm. But they did throw the ball to him a lot. He got a lot of targets, got a bunch of catches, just not a lot of yards. A.J. Brown on the sideline having a quasi-heated discussion with his teammate that Nick Sirianni tried to fake that he had no idea what anybody was talking about, except they caught him on video being right in the middle of it. And sure enough, within the next couple of plays, A.J. Brown's getting the ball. So when it's been very easy to determine a guy's been underfed, the Eagles usually address it shortly thereafter. So Devonta Smith not getting the ball at all, well, very little on Sunday against the Rams, 1 catch. History tells us it looks like they should be looking to expand Smith's role this week. But the Jets do have good cornerbacks. Am I overstating that the offensive coordinator acknowledges and reacts to guys who have small activity weeks the following week thereafter? Is Devonta Smith going to be a guy who's going to get the ball a lot this weekend?
Do you guys remember when all of Philadelphia was screaming at Doug Peterson to run the ball with LeGarrette Blount in the backfield? And I don't know where we saw LeGarrette Blount averaging over 10 carries a game. It's been always a theme with the Eagles. I feel like they have their pulse on the fan base, and they know what's expected of them. And he's due for a big game. I mean, Devonta Smith, you saw the way he kind of carried himself, up and down the field against the Rams, where he kind of just, looked nostalgic. Like he looked like, what the hell's going on? Yes, they are a team that they're not about individual stats, but at the end of the day, Devonta Smith is a big playmaker, and if you want to win, you need to involve your big playmakers. And I would definitely expect them to have a big game against the Jets.
Would love to see it. Would absolutely love to see it. And I don't want to harp on one thing, but I feel like it's the biggest concern going into this game outside anything that has to do with an injury. I think in the Buccaneers game, we saw not the Buccaneers game. I'm blanking on it now, but in week 5, I thought we saw the Commanders. Thank you. I think we saw the best and the worst of Brian Johnson in that particular game. And I think when it comes to the questions, Sean Desai answered whether or not he's a good defensive coordinator, I feel, in this game against the Rams. The way he made the adjustments, the way he is blitzed at a higher rate, the way that his linebackers and his defensive line have been able to get after it. I think Jalen Carter obviously makes a huge difference there, but I think it has been the two biggest questions in the offseason for me were Sean Desai and Brian Johnson. So when I look at Brian Johnson, I still have a lot of questions surrounding him. We talk about confidence level all the time, but I'm waiting to see a more consistent game plan, especially with the obvious, the red zone there with Brian Johnson. Can you give me maybe a positive and a negative from something you have seen from Brian Johnson this season that lets you think, all right, you know what? He's at least figuring it out, and this offense will find its way with him as their playing caller and get back to the rate they were at with a guy like Shane Steichen.
It's hard to give a big positive, right? But I do think against the Rams, where you saw the underneath passes, and instead of the long ball being a thing, was definitely a step in the right direction. We've seen them kind of adjust, on the fly. Where against the Vikings, DeAndre Swift was just the star of the game. They ran the ball, they ran to their strengths. But it's hard to really, to say that you've seen a big leap made like what Sean Desai did last week. Desai adjusted on the fly, and his secondary, who had the biggest question mark on them, they held, I think, the Rams to 81 yards in the second half, if I'm not mistaken. And they held Cooper Kupp to I think either one reception or no receptions in that second half.
I think 2 receptions, 25 yards in the second half. Yeah,
that's a huge adjustment from a guy that was torching you in the first half. We have yet to see Brian Johnson do that. Yeah, we've seen him kind of script, get Dallas Goedert into the game, script A.J. Brown into the game, but it's a matter of I feel like Johnson is looking at it as like he's playing chess, but you're actually playing checkers in this regard. It's simpler than it has to be for him.
I hope so. I love that. I love that idea of the overthinking it, and because that can be corrected eventually.
Correct.
But I like the line of thinking here. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to put it at this point. If he's gonna make a leap, I think this week is the way to do it. When you have the opposing head coach talking about putting 11 kisses on your quarterback. You want to show out, protect your quarterback, but also put Salah's money where his mouth is.
All right, this is a question I'm almost loath to ask, but I think it's legit this weekend with the situation and circumstance that it is. The Eagles are 5-0. There's only 2 5-0 teams in football. They've already got a lead in the division, and it could be expanding this week because Dallas has a tough game in LA against the Chargers. So Eagles could go to 3-6, go a 3-game up if the Cowboys fall to 3-3. So they're in very good shape. They're playing a team that they're a significant favorite against.
Mm-hmm.
There's always this balancing act between trying to win the game in front of you, the coaching staff being dedicated to that. And oh, by the way, we saw that a lot last year with the fact that Nakobe Dean never got snaps. And I was even critical of that. I think, I'd always prefer to be in the moment than worry about the future. But sometimes you can go too far in one direction. You try and give the general manager what he wants to work with. In a long roundabout way, here's my question. Does Derek Barnett play this week for showcase purposes? Do you get Derek Barnett a couple of extra snaps just in case he get in there and get a sack and somebody sees it on tape goes, yeah, we'll give you a 6th-round pick, fam. What the hell? Let's get that done. Does the coaching staff, depending on what the scoreboard says, lean a little bit more heavily on Derek Barnett this week because the Eagles are ready to move on from him at the trade deadline?
I don't know. It's funny. I saw him get a snap either last week or the week before, and I was like, oh, yeah, he's still part of the team. I forgot about that. But it's just – it feels like Derek Barnett is a product of Howie doesn't want to really give up on yet. Just for simple matters like, hey, I drafted this guy. Like, he has to give me something kind of thing. But if they are to make a move, it wouldn't surprise me if a team like, the team we're facing this week wants to give up a late round pick for Derek Barnett because Joe Douglas was around Barnett. I wouldn't see him getting much snaps, especially with the way Josh Sweat is playing, with the way Hassan Reddick is finally coming into his own. It'd be surprising, but yeah, he's still part of the team, right?
I had the same thought when I looked at snap count after the game. I went, oh, yeah, that guy.
You know what I saw when I looked at that? Oh, he gets more snaps than Nolan Smith. Why?
Yeah, that's true.
Why?
That's fair, yeah. No, because Nolan Smith's shoulder apparently works and sometimes it doesn't. which was a weird thing to say after I think the first game of the season.
It feels like Josh Sweat all over again with the knee issue when he first
right?
came out.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, you know what? I hope it has the same ending. Let's put it that way. As far as Devonta Smith goes, Jody referenced earlier the conversation on the sideline with A.J. Brown that apparently wasn't about targets, whatever. Since then, A.J. Brown has been getting all the targets. I saw something similar, but in a different set of emotion with Nick Sirianni, and it's a term that Jeff Lurie has used before, emotional intelligence. And I thought Nick Sirianni showed that. He put his arm around Devonta Smith. He was talking to him and trying to say, hey, man, you're still very much part of this offense. We're going to get going. At least that's what I assume. That's what I read, that situation. And I think it's pretty easy to read that similar to what it was with A.J. Brown. So we could talk about how good the secondary is of the Jets and what they do to wide receivers and all that. We could talk about how good A.J. Brown has been. But it took a while to get Dallas Goedert involved in this offense, especially in the red zone. How confident are you that you could see a guy like Devonta Smith really start to see those high numbers that we've been seeing from A.J. Brown? Because if you look at maybe the best wide receiving combo that they've seen, it was a win for the Jets. It was against Gabe Davis and it was against Stephon Diggs in the first game of the season. They held their own, 130 yards through the air just to those two guys. I think it was over 100 to Diggs and then it was 30 to Davis. This is the best wide receiving core they're seeing since then. So the opportunity is at least there for the Eagles to be using both wide receivers here. But how much do you think it's going to be on Devonta Smith's shoulders to carry this offense in the passing game?
I think 70-30, if I'm looking at it, honestly. I think Smitty has the advantage because he's not going to draw Sauce Gardner so much. AJ, you're going to see him get the ball. You're going to see him make the right catches. But I feel like he's going to have more of a – it's not Emmanuel Forbes you're going up against, right? You're going up against Sauce Gardner, who's proven himself. Now, on the other side, I forget his first name. I know his last name is Reed. I know he's very quick, right? And I feel like Devonta Smith is – with Devonta Smith, when you throw up the ball, he's coming down with it. I feel like that's the type of receiver he is. No matter where the ball is, he's coming down with it. He's doing something with the ball as well. And I think Jalen Hurts still has the utmost confidence in him. But I feel like it's going to be 70-30 Devonta going into this game.
All right. Farzy ferreted it out of you right at the top, so we'll let you go a little bit more in depth here. You're leaning toward the Eagles getting to 6-0. You're not alone there. We can guarantee you that. The fill in the blank. The main reason the Eagles will stay undefeated in this game against the Jets on Sunday is what? What individual, what aspect of the game? The main reason the Eagles walk out having not lost the game after the Jet game on Sunday is blank.
I mean, the Eagles once had Sam Darnold seeing ghosts in the field, right? I feel like this defensive line is a lot more fiercer. Hassan Reddick is, like I say, he's coming into his own. It's great to see him do his thing. But Josh Sweat is, I think, he had 7 pressures or 6 pressures in the last game. He's not spoken about enough, right? This defensive line, I think they get to Zach Wilson more often than not, and I think that's the reason that they win this game. I see the Eagles possibly putting around between 21 to 24 points and keeping the Jets at a low scoring rate. But yeah, I think Philly wins because of the defensive line.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, too. All right, if you want to read his stuff, PhillySportsNetwork.com. Get all of Brian's insights there. And or on the podcast, where can people get Flippin' Birds podcast?
Sure. So Flippin' the Birds is live on Tuesday nights on the PSN podcast, Philly Sports Network's YouTube. We have the time of our life. We're a very laid-back podcast. We just talk nonsense as much as we can, but we have a good time, right? That's what matters.
And while you're at it, have an adult beverage. If you're going to lay back and do it, you might as well have a beer while you're at it.
Exactly. We actually entice our guests to bring their adult beverages onto the podcast.
That's what we like to hear. That's extra points from
when do we get to be guests on your podcast? What the hell, man? When do we get to enjoy that?
Whenever you guys want. I can definitely slide into your DMs. We can make something happen.
Hit me up.
Love it.
Hit me up. Done deal, Brian. Thank you very much for jumping on to our show today. Yes, we owe you. Anytime you want us on your show, you got a guaranteed spot from yours truly. Thanks for doing it. Enjoy the game on Sunday.
Sounds good, guys. Take care. Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. Brian Cameron from PhillySportsNetwork.com. All right, Farzette and McDonald have to come back and officially get on the record. McMullen said 24-14 Birds. That's his pick as of right now. Farzette is going to be higher scoring than that. I might actually be lower scoring that. We'll see. Come on back. We'll give you scores for the Jets Eagles next here on Birds 365.
If you own a company and you're not producing a podcast, you're missing out. The public consumes messaging when they're ready. Join the professional podcast network of companies and let JAKIB Media Partners put you in the podcast arena. Come to our professional studio, or we'll come to your place of business and professionally produce your company podcast. Call JAKIB Media right now at 267-261-3428. 267-261-3428.
My name is Dr. Bruce Grossinger, and I'm the medical director of Philadelphia PRP and Stem Cell Institute. I'm reaching out to those who suffer from spine and joint pain. We use treatment methods that require no surgery, no scalpel, no drugs.
Running, walking, or whatever your desires are, Dr. Grossinger is where you need to come.
You can benefit from the same PRP and stem cell treatment as Wilbert Montgomery. Call us now at 610-222-5675.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com. EAGLES, Eagles.
All right, we're running out of time on a Football Friday edition of Birds 365. Mark Farzetta in for Johnny Mack. He had to head over to South Philly, get some info from the coaches before the final chance that the media has to be part of the Eagles' preparation for the game against the Jets. I've said this now a couple of times. I was so looking for it. When the schedule came out and the Jets were playing the Eagles, knew it was going to be a Jet. I just didn't know what date it was going to be. Aaron Rodgers signs with the Jets. I thought this was going to be a great game. I was well on record. For those who have pointed out today, I sound like a hater because I'm pointing out that Kenny Gainwell's production this year isn't near what it was previously. I'm not a hater. I picked the Eagles to be 5-0 at this point. I thought this was a game they could lose. Now I don't think that because Zach Wilson. So, I'm going to pick the Eagles to win. I'm going to say it's a no-play game for me this week. The Eagles are a 7-point favorite. I think it's going to land close to that. The under-over is 40.5. I think it's going to land close to that. So I'm not going to get involved in wagering on this game at all. My final score is Eagles 26, Jets 17. So they win. They win by more than a touchdown. Not quite double digits, right around the under-over number. If I'm not mistaken, Mark Farzetta is going to predict that the Eagles will go over by themselves at 40.5. All right, Farzy, give us your number. How bad a blowout is this going to be in Farzetta land?
Every time I get too comfortable about a game, I stop, I think, I say, all right, you know what? Take off the Kelly Green, take off the Eagles colored glasses. Is it really going to be like, hell yes, 42-13, Eagles win this game. They blow off the over-under without a problem, and we all feel hunky-dory going into that Miami Dolphins game.
42 what?
42-13, Eagles
13.
Win this game.
All right, so you only got them winning by 29 points. Yeah,
that's it. I'm very negative guy.
I got them win by 9. Farzetta's got them winning by 29. Okay.
Now, boy, but more importantly, Jody, I've known you for so long, I never even thought to ask you this question. What is your drink? What does Jody McDonald drink? What is your drink of choice? If you're having a refreshing, or not even refreshing, but just a relaxing drink at the end of a long day, whatever, what does Jody Mac's go to?
It's only been the same for damn close to 50 years, at least 45, age 12. Budweiser. I'm a Bud guy. Always have.
Just kick back with a Bud.
I got a Conshohocken brew the other night at the Phillies game because I always try and help my bud, Gladney Mac now. And Ring the Bell is good. I like it. Yeah, my second one, I went back to Bud. So I had two big beers at the game the other night for the Phillies.
That a guy. Very nice.
Yeah, I'll get a Bud. Other than that, I'm a shot guy. I'm not going to drink anything with ice in it or anything. No. I don't need a highball glass. It's either beers or shots. That's me. I'm a beer and a shot kind of guy.
Citywide special, baby. Citywide special.
Exactly right. All right, Farzy, thank you very much as always for jumping in. Appreciate it. So, because the Phillies don't play till Monday, right? Your next appearance here on the YouTube channel will be Sunday in the pregame show, right?
That is correct. Sunday, then Sunday pregame, halftime, then on the postgame.
What boat are you going to be doing it from? The one Gilligan took out to the island? I'm just double checking here.
We're going to be on the USS United States. That's docked right there on Delaware Ave. We're just going to do it on there. We're going to do it right there. That's it. Right. We'll have the good view of the Battleship New Jersey right on the other side of the river.
I said this earlier in the week again. Somebody's going to call me a hater. I said that was very cool. I saw the highlights of it afterwards. You guys did a very good job, which you always do, but that was actually a pretty fun setting.
Yeah, it was a blast, man. Love that place. Love the USS New Jersey.
I know that you get a little seasick, so that's why I worried about you, buddy. I just want to get
cast iron stomach, Jody. Cast iron.
Tough guy who's predicting 42-13. All right, Farzy will be here on Sunday. I'll be back on Monday with my guy Johnny Mac after an Eagles win. They should be 6-0. We'll be back here Monday on Birds 365 to talk about it in 2 days. That is.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.